Hello everyone, this is Dr. Aditi. Welcome to another episode of Anatomy and Physiology made simple using mind maps. As you can see, we are going to dive into the topic of the heart, which is awfully cumbersome for so many students. But in this episode, we're going to break it down and literally look at everything inside the heart. The chambers, the valves, the layers, even look at some of the musculature that is comprised in the heart. And of course, I always add mnemonics whenever possible and analogies to really help you understand and make the information stick. So let's get to it. Let's start off by looking at the layers of the heart. Now we're going to work from the inside out. So the very first layer I want to bring your attention to is the endocardium. Endo means inside, easy to remember. This is going to be the innermost layer of the heart wall, lining the chambers and the valves. And what this does, it produces a very smooth covering, a contour effect, I guess, that enables blood to flow very seamlessly without any friction or obstruction, right? And the other thing it does, it provides a protective barrier between the blood contents and the heart muscle wall, right? We don't want that to sort of mix together, obviously. And then it has something called Purkinje fibers. Remember that funny word that you were like, how do you pronounce this? Well, Purkinje fibers are part of the heart's conduction system, and they help regulate electrical activity of the heart. Now, the histology of the endocardium is that it has a single layer of flat endothelial cells, a dense inner connective tissue layer, and then it has a looser outer one. Right, so the next one is the myocardium. Now this is easy to remember because myo means muscle and M also means or stands for middle. So you can remember myocardium is the muscular middle layer. Now this is the thickest layer and it's where all the magic is happening. It's the contractile powerhouse of the heart. So if the heart was a car, this would be the engine, right? The composition of the myocardium is obviously muscle cells, which are actually called cardiomyocytes. And these are very unique and they contain sarcomeres. Similar to skeletal muscle, it allows for contraction. But they also have something interesting, something called intercalated discs. Now, these are specialized cell junctions that have gaps. And what these gaps do, they enable this sort of rapid, synchronized contraction of the entire heart muscle at once, right? It's sort of in unison. So very important for the myocardium. And it also has many mitochondria, as you can imagine, because we need a lot of continuous aerobic respiration and high resistance to fatigue, right? We can't let our heart sort of fatigue out. There's no option for that, obviously. Now, remember, the myocardium is going to vary in thickness. This is the only part that's really going to vary because the atria, which we'll cover in a little bit, at the top of the heart, they're not going to be as thick. It's the ventricles that are going to be thicker, and the left ventricle is going to be the thickest because it requires the most force to pump blood to the entire body, right? Compared to within itself. So that's just something you need to be cognizant of. All right, we're going to look at the last layer in the next slide because it's a little bit more in detail. It sort of has layers within layers. So let's take a peek at that. The outermost layer of the heart is the pericardium. This means peri means around, so it's the outer protective sac. Now, it has several other layers. That's why it's a bit tricky, and I wanted to go over them. The first layer is your fibrous pericardium. Now, this is going to be the outermost one, and it's tough. Its outer layer, it's going to be made of connective tissue. And what this does, it has a very unique feature. It anchors the heart in place, right in your chest, right? So it prevents it from any damage, but it also prevents it from overfilling because you don't want your heart to keep filling up where it expands and sort of bursts. Ooh, that's not a good image. But anyway, you get my point, right? It anchors it and protects it. So after that, we've got two serous pericardium layers. We've got the parietal and the visceral. So let's take a look at those. The parietal layer of the serous pericardium, this is what makes serous fluid, and it lines the inner surface of the fibrous. So you've got the fibrous and then you've got the parietal right there, right? And then of course there's the visceral pericardium, which is often called the epicardium. And the way you can remember is that V is for visceral and V is for vital organ. This pericardium or epicardium is always going to be right next to the vital organ. So the visceral epicardium covers the heart surface, and the parietal covers the fibrous pericardium surface. And in between, we've got a cavity, and that's obviously called the pericardial cavity. And that contains the serous fluid, which lubricates the heart and prevents it from damaging and reduces any friction during, the contraction and expansion. All right, there you have it. Oh, I just wanted to add a quick study tip for you on learning the layers of the heart. You know that there are 3 main layers, obviously, but sometimes, the epicardium can get a bit tricky. So using post-it notes can help you as you can layer them and see the different layers, right? The endocardium is the most inner one, then you've got the myocardium, and then I put epicardium on there because that's going to be right next to the heart wall, and then you've got the pericardium. And of course you can break that down further into parietal and visceral layers, but this is just a strategy. It's a great kinesthetic tool to help you remember the layers and practice them. So when you're first learning about the chambers of the heart, it's really important to use a very simplistic model. That's because when you look at a diagram of the heart, it requires some visual spatial skills to really get things situated and orient yourself, right? It can be a bit complex. So in this scenario, if you just draw a heart like so, and then divide it up into quarters, you'll see that you've got 4 chambers, which is what the heart has. The top chambers are your atria and the bottom are your ventricles. Easy to remember, A before V, so top are atria and bottom are ventricles. So then you want to orient yourself because you're looking at somebody else, you're looking at a patient, for example. So then you want to make sure you label the right and left sides accordingly. And that's what you would do: right atrium, right ventricles, and then left atrium and left ventricle. Now, one thing you want to remember is the left ventricle is the strongest. It's going to have the thickest wall because its job is to pump the blood all the way through the body. Now, in this video, we're not talking about blood flow, we're just looking at structure. So what I would do is draw a heart, divide it into quarters, label it, but then I would also label some of these structures so you know what's sort of coming in and out of the atria and ventricles respectively. And time yourself. You should be able to create this within 60 seconds and label it because it's super easy. Once you have that down, it's really going to make life a lot easier. So these are the chambers of the heart. The valves of the heart are very important because they're like doors that sort of control when things flow where, and they also control the direction. Like typically they're one way, right? So what happens is, due to pressure changes, these valves will open or close. And obviously this helps a lot because you don't want blood to just sort of fall through, right? We need to control it somewhat. So these valves are important for doing that. So the first valve I want you to be aware of is the tricuspid valve, which is right here. This is found between the right atrium and the right ventricle. And it has 3 flaps, hence the name tricuspid. And then if we follow it and go up, you'll see this is the pulmonary valve. This is located between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. Okay, and then we want to shift on to the left side of the heart where we'll find the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve, which is located between the left atrium and left ventricle, and this has 2 flaps. It's actually also called the bicuspid valve. Okay, then we follow that through into the aorta, and you've got the aortic valve, which is located between the left ventricle and the aorta. All right, so those are your 4 valves that sort of control things and open and close depending on pressure changes. Now, I do have some mnemonics for you down here to help you remember that the right side of the heart deals with deoxygenated blood, whereas the left chambers of the heart deal with oxygenated blood. And the mnemonic is LORD. LO is for left oxygenated, and RD is for right deoxygenated. The other mnemonic that you want to remember is LAB RAT. Left atrium has the bicuspid valve or mitral valve, and the RAT is for right atrium, which has the tricuspid valve. The other one I've heard people use is, try before you buy, meaning that tricuspid is on the right side and bicuspid is on the left, but whatever works for you. You just want to remember there are 4 valves in the heart, and you do need to know their locations. So when you're drawing your simplified heart version, make sure you do put those in there too, because those are really key features. And actually that's what I'm going to show you next, how to draw a simplified version of the heart within 60 seconds. All right, all you need to do is grab a whiteboard and a couple of dry erase markers. You definitely need red and we need blue, obviously, because that's going to signify your deoxygenated and oxygenated components. And then what you're doing is grab another color, black or something, then you can segment it into 4 quarters, and this obviously will be the chambers of the heart. And then the next part is really just getting some of those veins and arteries drawn. So here we're doing the aorta, and the key component here, you really need to focus on where it starts and where it ends and what's sort of projecting out of there, right? So we know the aorta starts in the left ventricle, so you want to be mindful when you're doing that, when you're drawing. That's going to be really important. And then of course that drawn right there off the left atrium is your pulmonary vein. So it sort of looks like a V, and that's another way to remember some of these structures. The pulmonary vein, you see, looks like a V projecting out. The aorta looks like an N, right? And then here we're drawing the pulmonary artery that will project out, and you'll see sort of making a Y shape as it projects out, because that's going to the lungs. And remember, again, be careful of where it starts and stops. The pulmonary valve will be starting in the right ventricle and heading out through the right atrium. And then this T shape is your superior and inferior vena cava. And again, that helps, just having that visual of a T can help you remember that. And that, again, positioning is key here. That is going into the right atrium because it's bringing deoxygenated blood with it. All right. And then, yeah, all you're doing is just labeling a few things. Pulmonary artery on top right there. And then you also probably want to label the pulmonary veins, and then of course we're going to do the valves. And remember, the left ventricle as you're drawing is the strongest. You can, and sometimes I just put like 2+ signs to indicate that's the strongest. And then just grab another color marker for the valves, and we know try before you buy, so we know that tricuspid is on the right, the right side, and then the bicuspid is on the left. And then, of course, don't forget the pulmonary valves and the aortic valves and where they go. And there you have it. That's essentially your diagram. And if you didn't label it, you could probably be done within 30 seconds. All right, here is a mind map that covers everything we've talked about in this video. This you can download on my website as soon as it becomes available. One thing I have been doing is taking these mind maps and creating a coloring page or template where you can color the structures and label to help you with memorization. If you're interested in that, do pop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe and follow me for more really simplified topics on anatomy and physiology. See you next time.